So let's talk about something really unsettling. What happens when the very people who are supposed to protect you are actually being controlled by something else? That's the chilling idea we're diving into today from the testimony of author Claudia Reid. She built this incredible framework to try and understand and ultimately survive her own family's trauma. This one sentence, man, it just gets right to the heart of her entire experience. This idea of never being able to make yourself, to become who you were meant to be, is everything to her story. It just makes you wonder, what on earth was this secret weapon they had? Well, according to the author, this weapon wasn't something you could see or touch. Nope, it was way more insidious than that. It was a tool for psychological and spiritual control, and it was all designed to keep her completely powerless. So get this, Reid says her parents didn't just, forget to teach her about God. They actively weaponized religion. So instead of God being a source of comfort, God was used as a threat, a way to justify their power. Things like, if you are disrespectful to me, God will shorten your lifespan. It was all about demanding obedience, not offering any real guidance or love. And what's just so cruel about all this is the two-faced reality she was living in. In public, family gatherings, she'd get what she calls love bombing, these big, over-the-top shows of affection, just to prove to the world what a happy family they were. But the second they got home, the mask came off, and it was right back to name-calling and constant cruelty. Just a dizzying, painful world to live in. So you take that psychological manipulation, and it just builds and builds, until it becomes what she describes as a complete world of betrayal, where danger wasn't just inside the home, it was coming from all sides. And just look at this list. It is staggering, because it shows the abuse she's describing wasn't just a one-off thing or the act of one person. According to her, the danger was systemic. It was coming from her immediate family, from her caregivers, from the very people who were supposed to keep her safe. This quote right here, it reveals what she calls the ultimate betrayal. In this absolutely horrific situation, she alleges she was punished for the abuse she suffered, blamed and beaten by the very parent who should have been her defender. And that betrayal wasn't just coming from her father. She points to a pattern of complicity from her mother, who she says would take things she told her in confidence and use them against her, basically siding with the abuser. It left her completely and utterly alone. So, you have to ask yourself, how does anyone even begin to make sense of that? Constant, seemingly senseless cruelty from every single direction. Well, that brings us to the absolute core of this explainer, the author's really unique and frankly powerful way of fighting back. This is her method for making sense of the senseless. She started identifying and actually naming the demons she believes were controlling her family members. By doing this, she's able to externalize the evil. It's no longer just her mother or father doing these horrible things. It's an entity acting through them. Okay, so the first entity she names is Finsta. This is the name she gives to the demon she believes is attached to her mother, the force behind all the manipulation, the complicity, and the victimhood she witnessed. And for her father, there's a counterpart, Redam SR. That's the name she gives the entity driving his rage, his cruelty, and all his betrayals. And that senior part, yeah, that's going to be really important in just a second. And boom, here it is. This is where you see the pattern lock in. Her younger brother's demon is just Redam, a direct generational successor to Redam SR. So in her mind, this isn't just a random evil, it's something being passed down. And this idea, this legacy of trauma, is totally central to how she sees everything. This wasn't something that was going to end with her parents. She could see it actively infecting the next generation. And it's not just on the father's side. The maternal line of this trauma follows a very similar pattern. Just like Redam came from Redam SR, she sees her mother's demon, Finsta, producing an offspring she calls Minsta, and she believes that is what's now influencing her sister and her niece. So this is so important to understand. This whole framework, it wasn't just some abstract idea. It had real-world consequences. This quote right here explains why she stayed in that abusive home until she was 43 years old. She saw the exact same pattern of trauma starting all over again with her younger sister Rachel, and she felt like she had to stick around to be a shield. So after decades of this, of observing these patterns and trying to protect others, the author finally arrives at this really tough but powerful conclusion about her path forward. She realizes that waiting for an apology or for them to take any kind of accountability, it's just never going to happen. I mean, how can you expect an apology from someone you believe is being controlled by a destructive entity? You can't. It's a futile effort. And this is her core takeaway, a piece of advice just born from a lifetime of pain. For her, true freedom didn't come from getting them to admit they were wrong. It came from completely letting go of the need to ever hear it. And so this deeply personal story leaves us with a really universal question. When you're confronted by a reality so dark that it just defies normal explanation, is the act of defining it, of giving it a name, whether you call it a demon, a pattern, or a sickness, is that the most powerful tool we have to reclaim our own story and ultimately to survive?